Meeting.
Randy, you look really good.
Thank you, Rusty. You too, man. Okay, this meeting of the board is called to order. Welcome, everyone. I want to start by determining if all board members are connected. Terry?
Yes.
Thank you. Celeste?
Yes.
Rusty?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Bo?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Very good. Keith?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance on behalf of the board. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, very good. We'll move to approving our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
Nothing for me, Randy.
Very good. Is there a motion, please, on page 2 to approve the agenda?
Yes, Randy, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education approve the agenda as printed.
Very good. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Barb, this is a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Droppers,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novario. Yes. And Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. The motion's approved. We'll proceed with our agenda as presented. This is our organizational meeting this evening, and we have a few orders of business. The first is to administer the oath of office to our incumbents who were reelected in November. Congratulations to Rusty. Rusty's been serving on the board since 2008. Terry since 2014. Dr. Celeste Shelton Harris since 2014, and Kurt Droppers since 2015. And the oath will also be administered tonight to our newest board member. Congratulations to Keith Kroll, who was appointed by the board last year to fill our vacant seat on the board. And now the recording secretary, Barb Atkinson, will administer the oath of office.
Do you, Terry Novaria, Bo Snyder, Celeste Shelton Harris, Kurt Droppers, and Keith Kroll solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Portage Public Schools, Kalamazoo County, Michigan, according to the best of your ability. Terry, your response, please.
I do. I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste, and congratulations to everyone. Our next item is election of officers tonight, and I don't know if you take care of that. The election of each position will ask 3 times for nominations for each position. There's no need to second the nominations. This isn't a regular motion. So I ask 3 times for nominees for each office, and then the nominations will be closed. Election of officers shall be by a majority of the full board. If only one person is nominated for an office, the person conducting the election may declare that that person is elected by acclamation. So at this time, I'll take nominations for the office of president.
President Van Antwerp, I nominate Randy Van Antwerp as president of our Portage Public Schools Board of Education.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second nomination? And I'll ask one more time for a nomination. One person was nominated, so by acclamation, Randy Van Antwerp is elected president. Is there a nomination for vice president, please?
President Van Antwerp, I nominate Terry Novaria for vice president.
Thank you, Rusty. Is there another nomination for president? And I'll ask one more time. Is there another nomination for vice president? Hearing none, by acclamation, Terry Novaria is reelected vice president. Is there a nomination for secretary, please?
Mr. President, I nominate Dr. Celeste Shelton Harris as secretary.
Is there a second nomination for secretary? I'll ask one more time. Is there a second nomination for secretary? Very good. Then by acclamation, Dr. Celeste Shelton Harris is reelected secretary of the Board of Education. Thank you. We'll move to our report section, and we'll start out with the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Randy. Before we get into the bond project update, I just wanted to briefly share with you the results of some of the surveys that we've been giving lately to our parents, caregivers, our students, and our employees. As I referenced in the monitoring report this month, we had to make a switch from the traditional surveys that we were doing to more of a pulse check survey. We did pulse check surveys this fall at the 30-day mark and again at the 90-day mark, approximately, wanting to get feedback on our return to learn plan from those three groups of our community. And we received the results of our 90-day surveys here just before winter break. And just want to highlight a few things that we found. Overall, we received very positive results. There were in the increases in the district from staff is that most of them are knowing what is expected of me at work. That received over a 4.0 rating on the part of our staff members. So the expectations are clear, and as well as receiving feedback that helps me do a good job. So those are two areas that we're really pleased with. They continue to be high, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that we realize that one of the biggest issues we have is effective communications, especially in times of complexity when things are changing all the time. So one of the things that we continue to work on is this whole concept of cascading communications and making sure that we're communicating the right things to the right people at the right time and from the right level. So that input that we get back from our staff is very important to us. From the on the parent side, we had 5 items in this survey that increased from the last time that we administered the survey. And the highest scoring item was, I have access to my child's teacher when needed. So that was, I mean, that's kudos to our teaching staff for being available for parents in a timely manner. So that continues to stay high and actually got better from when we administered the survey the first time in October. Other items that saw an increase were being confident that their child's school is handling the COVID-19 challenge to keep their children safe. Also, that our school is focused on social emotional well-being of their child. Feedback from their child's teacher about their learning also was up. And then receiving, again, another increase was timely communication on changes that occur in my child's school. So those were all increases from the last time we administered the survey. The one area that decreased, and this is really a trend that we're told is true for across the country, is I'm confident that my child will not fall behind in school. I mean, that's obviously a concern that in this environment that we're in, the circumstances that we're under are impacting how their student learns. So that's something we'll be working on. And then from the students, the highest scoring item was, I feel safe when I'm doing my schoolwork. So that continues to trend very high in the high 4 near 4.5. They're also the other high scores from our students where they're connected to their school friends. They know how they're doing on their schoolwork, and I know what I'm supposed to do to complete my schoolwork. So again, a lot of high level of confidence from our students. The one item that concerns us all that tended to score lower was, I'm ready to learn each day. And that can be because of a number of circumstances, but those are kind of a high level report on those surveys. The information is broken down by building. So building leaders have received this information They're in the process of rolling these results out with their respective staffs and developing some action plans on the lower areas that are relative to their building that can see some increase in how we're providing services to our students. So these results were shared again during winter break. We had a coaching session with our Studer coach KK Owen earlier this month, and stand ready to make some improvement in these areas. So again, these surveys replace our traditional surveys that we've been doing with parents and staff and students, but they really give us some good information on a very limited number of topics that we can quickly turn around and try to make some improvements on. So I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions. All right. Well, thank you. And the scheduled report that we have this evening is from Mr. Herron on our bond project update. So Ron, the floor is yours.
Good evening, board members, and Happy New Year to each of you. I just have a brief report tonight on construction update. I'll be talking about 3 sites. At Central Middle School, we're continuing to work through our balancing and commissioning of our mechanicals there, and a few remaining punch items. I'm happy to say we're 99% complete with our process in that building. So feeling pretty good at where we are. At West Middle School, same thing. We had test and balancing report was submitted for final inspection, and just a couple of minor punch list items left, mostly because of materials not being available. So when those things come in and are available, we'll complete that. And I would say that we're 99% complete there as well. So, and then at the Northern Auditorium, we've had the scaffolding in, getting all the ceiling work done, lights, painting, and some other fans and those kind of things up in the ceiling. That scaffolding will be removed next week. And we're continuing to do work in other parts of the building, putting a hard ceiling in the locker rooms, some boiler rough in, some painting on the second floor, metal screen walls at the second floor. We'll be starting soon, and then that's about it. I would say that we're probably 70% done there, and we'll be assessing that schedule to make sure we're still on track. And we'll report that at the next update. And that's all I have for you tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Ron.
Just one thing. Mark, are you guys still planning on doing a tour?
Yes, we have a tour with the board. Thanks for reminding me of that, Ron. We do have a tour scheduled for board members who are interested. It's prior to our January 25th meeting. It'll be at 4:30 at Central Middle School to tour that facility. And Jeff Hamilton, principal there, will help guide the tour and you get a chance to see that building in its newness. So I think I mentioned just for those of you that do want to do that, just come to the main entrance. The parking lot is just south of the facility, and the main entrance. Well, you're familiar with North Middle School, so this is the same layout as that.
That's it for me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll move to our next item, which is board education and update on the extended COVID-19 learning plan.
Great. I'll turn this over to Mr. Huber and Dr. Pascoe, and they'll give you the update. and we'll do the reconfirmation during the action portion of the meeting. Gentlemen?
Great. Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Beelang, trustees. Tonight we'll be presenting to reconfirm our monthly COVID-19 extended learning plan as we've done in the past. So tonight we're going to take a look at our attendance rates, the weekly rates that we report, an update on our plans for the second semester transition. Want to share some numbers of those choosing virtual versus face-to-face, K through 12. We're going to look at some recent county health department data, as well as touch on some of the building protocols and the system details that we've been working on to prepare to bring more students back into our buildings across the district. As we entered the winter break, the emergency order was modified just as we left out, and those restrictions were lifted, particularly related to high school. So therefore, as we re-entered on January 4th, we were back to face-to-face and virtual offerings, and we opened back up our in-building access at both our middle and our high schools. If we look at our weekly attendance rates, they seem to be relatively consistent, about 97% or above. Again, if a student attends any portion of the school day, they're considered in attendance. Just like we've stated before, it doesn't measure student engagement, just whether or not they are present. So that's just a quick update there. We're going to talk a little bit about elementary and then secondary numbers. So let's start with elementary. I'll hand it over to Mrs. Jansenius for an update there. Kelly?
Great, thank you, Michael. At the elementary, the plan is to continue our face-to-face and virtual instruction for all our elementary schools Monday through Thursday with the asynchronous on Fridays. We continue to offer KVIC, and we're coming close to closing the selection window for our elementary families to make any changes to their instructional mode in their programming with a deadline of January 14th. So on the next slide, what you start to see here are just some of those initial selections. So going back a little, currently in our current modes of instruction, we have about 63.3% of our students at elementary in face-to-face learning. We have 35.7% in the PPS virtual programming and about 1% in our KVIC programming. As I stated earlier, the selection window for Q3 closes January 14th. As of today, you can see we are still, well, as of today, we're still waiting for about 65% of our elementary families to give their selection. So looking at the numbers on how families have selected so far, if about 7% of families chose to switch from virtual to face-to-face, we would have about 200 students transitioning back, which averages about 25 students per building. So we'll see where that lands once that selection window closes, but just kind of running some numbers. So once all these numbers are in, elementary principals and myself, we will work together to start to place students and then communicate those changes to the teachers by January 21st, and then to our families by January 27th, so that we can have that start date of February 1st, which will be after the third quarter begins. But we know that by waiting a week, getting report cards done, that makes the transition a little bit smoother. That was one of the pieces we learned at the second quarter. So with that update, I'm going to have Michael go ahead and take over and start talking about secondary program selection. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. As for the secondary program, all students continue to engage in our PPS virtual offering, as well as we got a few students, I believe we had 26 this first semester, just finishing up some KVIC courses through Michigan Virtual. Building access, like we stated previously, we continue to offer that. But we continue to plan for students who elect the face-to-face option to return to our classrooms starting Monday, January 25th. So that's still our plan, is to start that first week back, second semester. For the most part, family selections are complete, and we'll present the secondary selection numbers, I believe, on the next slide. We're also gearing up for some professional learning the week of January 18th for our secondary staff. On our half days, we'll focus on the HighFlex teaching and learning model at that time. So looking at our selection numbers for secondary, we see approximately 32% of our middle and high school families are electing to come back into our classrooms for face-to-face instruction, with the remaining electing to stay in our PPS virtual, so just around 67%. And we still have a handful that are sticking with the KVIC Michigan virtual offering. It's just about under 1% of our secondary population. We're still awaiting a few responses, so less than 30 families our secondary staff and our leaders are doing an incredible job connecting with their students and their parents to give us their selection so that we have accurate numbers for planning. But our secondary staffing, I can't say enough in terms of the amount of work that they've done to get these numbers to where they're at and to make sure that they're guiding people in the right way, especially those that had questions around what these modalities would look like. So kudos out to all the secondary staff that helped get these numbers to where they're at. So now I'll hand it over to Mr. Huber. He's going to talk a little bit about that county health department data. We'll look at some of our current building case numbers and an update on our system details that our building leaders are working on each day. Mike?
Thank you, Dr. Pasco. Good evening, trustees. Good to share with you a little bit about where our current health status is. If you went on the Kalamazoo County COVID webpage right now, you'd see the same information here. I don't believe they've put an update down yet for today's numbers, but our current trend is still downward, and our 7-day average is around 66 new cases per day. That's new and probable combined. So that's where the 7-day average is, and that kind of tends to bump up and down on any given week, but it shows us a good trend of what's happening in Kalamazoo County. If you take a look at our matrix that we presented in our preparedness plan, I've grabbed the top 4 items from that, which are listed there on the right, giving you a status that is external to our building. So we're still in Michigan Regional Phase 4, although the regional status tends to be a number that's more, or a letter really, that's more used now. And we're still at a letter E, according to the Michigan State website on this information. We do know there's our new cases listed, 66, but right now no buildings in PPS have been considered to have had an outbreak at it. And the colors coordinate to the colors on our preparedness plan matrix. Our regional phase 4 kind of puts us in the yellow or the orange, the regional status and new cases in orange, but our outbreak status in green. If we take a look at what's happening in our buildings, right now, the top row is indicating transportation or food service or support staff that are relative to that building if they have a positive case. So really, overall, our support staff, we don't have anyone. We have 1 confirmed case at Lake Center. If we take a look at the second row, this is teaching staff and support staff that are relative to student instruction. And so we have 0 positive cases here, except for 1 case at Mooresbridge. And in the bottom row, you'll notice that we have case indicators for students. And there is a caveat below that with the asterisk. Right now at Amberley, Haverhill, Mooresbridge, and Woodland, there is 1 student positive. To collect this data, I'm looking back over the last 14 days from December 29th to date today. The asterisk there is indicating that students at the secondary, and even at the students at secondary, will only appear if they utilize the in-building access. And the same is true of elementary students if they are in our virtual program. They won't appear on this particular roster. So we do know of cases like our Alpine ski team. There is a student case there, and I think there are a handful of others that we're aware of. But for families that are being instructed virtually, we don't have the need to post that on our dashboard, but we still try and keep track, and sometimes we are unaware when those students test positive. So that can still happen for us, but this is our cumulative data. You'll notice they're all in the green. So these indicators would tell us that for these 3 metrics, our system is good to go in terms of being able to support some in-person instruction. If we take a look at a few details that we have, we're kind of continuing to support our systems as a whole. So we have some back-to-school tours for new students. This would be all students who are doing in-person instruction starting January 25th. So our middle and high schools are developing some back-to-school tours. There's also some video instruction for protocols. Since we're going to be welcoming students back to in-person instruction, we have some videos that schools are producing around social distancing, masks, cleaning processes. We're working on what it looks like to transition and handle large spaces, like the arrival and departure at the end of the day, hallways in between class period times. So our middle and high school staff are working on developing what those details are. We've also been working on meal processes for breakfast and lunch in order to handle the students in our cafeteria and continue to keep them safe. Then we have some scheduling and selection. Our counselors are working through students that have potential in-person or virtual teacher options that they need to resolve. And then we just want to make sure all of our students are fully scheduled. That happens in any given semester. We have some moves and some changes. So that's not out of the ordinary. And then lastly, we wanted to share with you that for summer programming and for future virtual program, our conversations continue and are building up. So we're meeting as teams to talk about what this summer looks like, as well as the fall of 21 for both virtual instruction, as well as to continue our education for students as we head towards a new school year. So those are our system details. We appreciate being able to share with you and bring back our extended COVID learning plan for reconfirmation. Dr. Pasco?
Yeah, just want to say thank you guys for listening and giving us the time to present tonight. That was all we had for you this evening. So at this point, we'll take any questions or comments from the board.
Hi, guys. I have 2 questions. The first one is for Kelly. Could you clarify again the number or the percentage of families that you're still waiting to hear from about their choice at the elementary level?
Yeah, we still have 65% that haven't filled in the form yet. We sent it out last week, and that's typical. We did a push today from principals, and I think a few of the principals are going to have the teachers do a individual push as well. And I think we'll get most of them by Friday. And if we don't, then what we'll have at that point, the secretaries will make some of those personalized calls. I think sometimes with these, we just got back from break and families just weren't in the swing of things quite yet, but I think we'll get there pretty quickly. So.
Okay, good. And then my other question is for Mike and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I guess Kelly too. What if families change their minds? Do they have the ability to switch at any point going forward? Either way, or are we bound by quarters, or how are you handling that? Just for information.
Yeah,
Michael, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I can, at the elementary level, I can speak of how we've been doing it. So we try to do the quarter pieces so that it's more consistent for the kids and for the teachers. But at any point in time at elementary, if a family has circumstances in which things have just changed, which we know seem to happen quite a bit lately, we just go through a process with the building principal. We work through that, and then by the next week, we typically have them signed up for whatever virtual or face-to-face piece that they need. So that's how we've been rolling at the elementary level. But we're trying to make it flexible, but not too many transitions for the kids and the families.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of on an individual basis that you're handling.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Michael, this is Celeste.
Hi, Celeste. Hi, Doc.
Hi there. I apologize if I'm a broken record here, but I'm curious about the attendance. It just seems so, I know that at the last report, you indicated that there would be some work towards trying to make that look more transparent because it really is misleading. And so my question at this point is, how do teachers report attendance if individually? So if I'm a teacher and I have 6 classes, how do I report my attendance per class?
Mike, you want to talk about the virtual way that we operate in that?
Sure. So what a teacher would do is probably within the first 15 minutes of class, like usual, they would capture who is present or absent in the Skyward system. We have a positive system that basically the class list shows, and they would check off students who are absent or tardy at that time. On occasion, our teachers will wait till the end of the class period to take that attendance. All of our Google Meets track who's present and for how long. So what a teacher gets after is a full report of who was in the class and for how long they attended it. And so they put that information, not necessarily the amount of time, but they can double check their present or absent information in Skyward at that time. So Attendance, there are double the number of attendance codes than we used to have in the system based on present, interactive, absent, or virtual. So there's been an additional set of codes that we were required to parse for that attendance. So I believe that, did I get to your question there?
Yes, but that apparently does not reflect the reports that you give us with the 97% and 98%. I mean, they're not meshed. They're not in alignment.
Correct, because for that report, I mean, we can probably bring a deeper attendance report if we'd like to look at that or start to process it. But the expectation from the state in that ECLP report was to show whether they're attending at least one session, or I'm sorry, 2 sessions per week. So really, it is a loose interpretation of that. Now, our staff and support staff at the buildings consistently call on attendance way deeper than we're presenting to you right now.
Yes, because that attendance is clearly going to impact how well they do in that class. So
Certainly, absolutely.
Hey, Michael, Mike, it's Rusty here. I have a question. Just actually being a parent and just curious as a board member. There's kids attending, roughly 25%, say in the high school. Essentially, from what I understand, they're taking virtual classes, but with it just sitting there in the classroom. What about kids who maybe can they spend half the day in the building and then go home at lunch and finish out virtually? Has anybody thought about some of that flow going on?
Yeah, no, we've kind of developing the the mindset of knowing who would be in the building, for a given day. Obviously, we know there's going to be some transition for folks that maybe start and then go home. There might even be, like we presented last time or last couple times around, maybe you have 7 classes, but maybe one of those teachers is a virtual teacher or needs to be, at home or away from students for medical reasons. So they may have a break in their schedule. We're hoping we don't have a ton of that though, Rusty. We want to stay pretty consistent with our protocols, know who's in the building and have them for the certain amount of time. But we know we'll meet kids and families where they're at and based off of their needs. And I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else to add really to that outside of, we're hoping that there's not a ton of transitions in and out of the building.
I think a couple of the systems don't show up as strong, though, but Mr. Rathburn, we do have all of our CTE or EFE programming, which will still have some off-site classes. Those students will be transitioning like they always have prior to then. So, but for the most part, we wanted to maintain some consistency for the same reasons as elementary or anywhere else, so that we can, not only can we predict, but we can support with accuracy. That helps things like not only attendance, but it helps things like food service. It helps us know for transportation what all of those elements are when we have students consistently in the building.
Yeah, I just know the amount of kids. I mean, some of the kids are returning for social emotional purposes to see other kids, and 75% of them, it appears, won't be there, and I'm sure it's going to be disappointing for some kids once they see most of their friends are not in fact in the buildings. So I think I don't know, it's going to be, I don't know, I just hope everybody's aware that I think the perception is different than what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely going to feel different for students. There's no doubt about that, especially with some of these system details that Mike presented and that our principals and our building leadership teams are working on. So that is true. We're hoping that, kids stick it out. We want to really, implement the things that we say that we're going to implement for, weeks on end. And we hope that as we make that transition after marking period 3 to marking period 4, that maybe we have more students that want to come in. But I think it's a good number. When I look at the percentages and we look at just around 30%, I think that's a good start. Keep in mind, we haven't had, folks in our classrooms at the secondary level. So, starting any higher than that actually, it just becomes more of a challenge, at least at the start. We want to get confident with the things that we said we're going to do. Let's test them out a little bit. I think there's a lot of proactive thinking that's happened here, but again, like I've said in the past, there'll be things that we learn just by doing. So we'll have to go through this just like elementary did. They did a wonderful job of planning, and then there were things that just came up and they had to tackle and try to work around and resolve. And they did a wonderful job. So we're going to learn a lot from the path that our elementary teachers and our leaders and our staff at the elementary level have done. They've done amazing work, and so we're hoping that, you know, we're doing as much proactive thinking as possible, but we're mindful that we don't have all the answers, because some of the answers won't come until we physically have the kids transitioning and going through our typical secondary day. So, but Rusty, we hope that, you know, hopefully kids aren't doing that. They come for a couple classes and then want to go out, regardless of whether or not they see their friends. We hope that it's more about, that's the modality in which they'll have the most success in terms of learning. So we'll see what happens as we hopefully make that transition here shortly. I don't know, Mike, if you had anything else to add to that question that Rusty had.
No, I think that you're right on with that. I also think with the opening of processes as we continue to learn, we'll have an opportunity for families to kind of change a overall choice at the 4th marking period, and that'll probably shift some numbers too. I know that we're feeling confident that we're able to make a good start here on the 25th, and hopefully then we can see what things need to change and improve attendance and improve in-person instruction.
Well, I'll talk from personal experience, and I think a lot of kids feel this way, is, kids are going back for social emotional purposes. When they're learning from home, there are a lot of freedoms, how they learn, where they are in their home, not wearing masks, you don't have the restrictions. So coming to school to see people and friends who aren't there, along with all the restrictions, I don't know. I could see some kids wanting to change their minds. So I guess just a warning to be prepared. I think the restrictions, which are for good measure. But I think the kids' idea what this is going to be like probably isn't going to be as fun as they anticipate. I can tell you, my kids are kind of specifically going back because they want to be in Mr. Cam's class. But some of those restrictions might kind of turn them off. So, and I don't believe they would be in the minority, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But hopefully we're all prepared for that. Thanks for your answers, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. Good questions.
Hey, guys, this is Bo. Just a quick observation. When we surveyed the middle and high school parents a couple months ago, wasn't it about half of them said they wanted the in-person option? But now when we're seeing the signups, the high schools were about a half of that, right? About a quarter. And then the middle school is a little higher than that. So anyway, that's just kind of a surprise, but maybe that's for the best. And we'll just kind of keep working with it and see where we are in the 4th quarter. Get over the winter hump, get more vaccines in people, and maybe it'll start to look a little more normal in 4th.
Yeah, we're hopeful for that, Bo, for sure.
Yep.
Any other questions for our presenters?
I'm sorry, guys. Just one more comment to talk a little about what I was both saying. I have talked to a lot of parents, and the parents and the kids and the families like the freedom of online school. So, I mean, they can travel and still get online school. There's certain things that come along with that. So having that option, I think, has kind of, as people thought about it, boy, this is just the same thing. It's just we could still do this in Florida or Colorado or somewhere else. So that might be a little bit what's changed since we did our survey.
And I want to echo that too, that I've seen some of that firsthand, and I do feel like as time goes on, there's a more greater level of comfort with something that was brand new and awfully scary at first, and that's changed. So I guess that's kudos to how that's been presented and rolled out, that they have achieved that level of comfort.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. I think a lot of that is due to just how well our teachers have adapted to creating these virtual lessons. And I mean, as each week went by, in the start of the school year, they just got more confident, they got more competent, and we really saw some wonderful things. We're just hoping that as we get some kids back into that classroom, maybe we have richer classroom discussion. Maybe we get more out of it because we have people in seats in front of their teachers that they miss. You know, they miss seeing them in person. You know, that's one thing that we've heard. And I think maybe just that sense of being in a classroom and in that school building, being able to move from class to class and from teacher to teacher. I think for some kids, it's going to go a long way from a teaching and learning standpoint. And maybe those that are tuning in virtually, it will hopefully maybe enrich, you know, the lesson itself. And we'll see. You know, we haven't tried it yet. This is our first attempt. And I personally like the numbers around 30%. I think that's a good start for us to try to implement some of these protocols and some of our system details. And like you said, Bo, hopefully as we transition after spring break, that we see maybe a larger number that helps us kind of test those protocols with more kids in and out of our buildings each day. But thanks for your comment, Keith. I see the same type of things that are happening. That level of comfortability, I think, goes along with just the wonderful job our teachers have done with virtual teaching.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all our presenters tonight. Thank you. A lot of good information and a lot of good work going on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, board. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
We move to our comments and communications section. As far as I know, we have no citizens who wish to address the board tonight, so we'll go right to comments by board trustees.
I just wanted to say, with all of the uncertainty and the newness of our virtual setting and all of that, I wanted to give kudos to the North Campus for the musical, the holiday musical that they presented virtually. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm not sure how they did it, but they were all on key and they sure sound fabulous. They were wonderful.
I would agree with that,
Celeste.
Celeste. I saw a little portion of it too, and I thought it was really great. There was also something that they did that was a message saying, "We miss you," and kids had colored signs and shown them, and some of them had Santa hats on, and it was a really cool thing. So yeah, kudos to the teachers for their creativity.
Hey, and this is Bo. If I can go next. For Randy and Terry and Celeste, I want to thank you for your ongoing work as officers. There is extra work there, and I know Randy, especially, you know, a lot of the work that you do in terms of policy governance, and there's a lot of work there. So I know you all do extra duty, so much appreciation for that. And then also, Keith, welcome. And some of you may not know that I have been assigned to be Keith's board buddy to help with orientation. And we'll be talking more in the coming weeks, but earlier today, Keith and I had a very quick discussion and we went over how to make a motion. And we will, so Keith has had his first vote already, and we'll see if later in the meeting he wants to make a motion. That'll be up to him. But we went over the nuances of doing that. So Keith is getting on to it. Welcome, Keith.
Well, thank you, Bo, and I appreciate the outreach that you have done, and really a number of you have, and it's an honor to be a part of this group, so thank you.
Any other comments from trustees?
Hey, yeah, Randy, it's Rusty. Just welcome, Keith, and just so you know, I run with Bo every morning. And when he came on the board, he said to me, "Hey, how do these motions work?" So we're all learning. So yeah, you did. I see you shaking your head. So all right. Welcome, Keith. Good to have you.
Thank you.
And Keith, this is Kurt, and I want to welcome you also. Thank you for joining the board. And now I'm not the newest member of the board. That honor goes to you. So thank you for
all right.
joining.
Okay.
Yeah, from me too. Welcome, Keith. It's good to have you on board. Also want to tell everybody that my 4 grandsons were very pleased to be back at Amberley School this week. And that leads you to thank all of our employees for stepping up and ensuring our students are safe and healthy and continuing to learn during COVID-19. Bo, I also neglected to congratulate you on your reelection and swearing you in. I congratulated Celeste instead, and I shouldn't have because she didn't accomplish that this year. You did. So congratulations, and you have been serving the board since 2009, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Randy, you're welcome. I took no offense. Celeste always deserves the extra kudos. I chalk that up to gremlins, so we're good.
Good, good. Are there any board committee reports?
Randy, I'll just quickly say we're welcoming Keith to the Owner Linkage Committee. We had a quick meeting today to talk about our monthly message for February to the community through the District Extra. So we're getting Keith engaged there, and the drafts of those might have already been routed by you and Mark, so they can have your input. So many thanks to involvement there.
Very good. Thanks, Bo. We'll move to the consent agenda, and there are two parts to the consent agenda tonight, those dealing with organizational items and our monthly consent agenda items. The organizational items, A, is to designate depositories for school funds. We use 10 financial institutions for a variety of funds that we have. B is to approve the Board of Education meeting schedule. And we're going to continue and base that on our current practice of meeting in the second and fourth week of the month. We need to designate persons authorized to use the safety deposit box. And that again will be the superintendent, assistant superintendent of operations, the director of finance, and the board secretary. We have to designate our electronic transfer officer, and that's Paula Johnson, director of finance. And finally, we need to appoint a board recording secretary. And again, that is Barb Atkinson, lucky for us. Our normal consent agenda items are approval of minutes from the December 14th, 2020 regular business meeting, the December 30th, 2020 special meeting, and the January 4th, 2021 special meeting. Item B is human growth and development instructional materials. We are approving the use of 4 sex education video elements from amaze.org and the human growth and development curriculum at the high school level. Mike Huber reviewed all of these items with us at our December 14th regular meeting. Public comment was received at 2 meetings, one on December 17th and one on January 5th. As a result of those meetings, there was removal of one of the videos from the list of resources available. Are there any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. And we'll now move to page 29 in our board packet, Assurance of District Performance, Monitoring Report 1.5. Our ends. And is there a motion, please?
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education accept the monitoring report 1.5 ends as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Thank you,
I
Celeste.
second.
Thank you. Mark, are there any highlights?
Well, yeah, thank you, Randy. If you just take a quick look at the report, you'll notice that it looks very similar to reports from the past. And I did that intentionally because I didn't want to lose sight of all the things that happened, even though COVID-19, starting back last March 13th, it kind of put a big, put the brakes on a lot of the things that are happening on a regular basis. And I've alluded to that in a few places there about how, you know, the interaction between some of our community organizations and clubs continues, but not in the same fashion as it has in the past. So things look and feel a little bit differently, but we continue to get support from many of our community organizations. Our other groups our councils continue to meet. I did add the Superintendent Student Advisory Board to the report that wasn't there last year. a little explanation on the makeup of that board in the report. And that group has continued to meet virtually on a monthly basis. I meet with that group to gather their input and do some processing of information. I previously talked about the changes that we've made in our parent satisfaction survey. And I guess the other two other things I wanted to mention, the first being that our facilities, typically get used extensively by our community. That's one of the biggest impacts that's been felt this year is our facilities have basically been closed for regular usage to our community since last March. So really is done for health and safety reasons. And we look forward to the days when we can open things back up for our community and get our buildings used. And lastly, I did expand a little bit on the efforts of several of our departments, primarily based in the central office, but also our counselors and others who continue to work extremely hard through these difficult times in supporting our students, supporting our staff with technology, with all of the planning that's had to take place with our extended learning plans and our preparedness plans. So that's just a shout out to those folks who continue to provide services to our students and staff. Our students also continue to remain engaged as best as they can, and that was last on the report, that last section. They lack some ability to again connect with others in a traditional way, but have done the best they can in a virtual setting. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Say it, Randy.
Well, thank you, Mark. It was an excellent report. Thank you very much. This is a roll call vote, please, Barb, to approve the monitoring report.
Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers.
Yes.
Based on the vote, the monitoring report for 1.5 ENS policy is approved. We'll now move to our sole action item tonight, and that's to reconfirm the extended COVID-19 learning plan on page 40. Is there a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make the following motion that the Board of Education reconfirm the 2021 extended COVID-19 learning plan as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Keith. And this is a roll call vote, please, Barb.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Droppers,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Barb. The extended COVID-19 learning plan has been reconfirmed by the board. Thank you. Our last agenda item is a discussion of a resolution declaring support for the special education millage proposal. This has come upon us again. This proposal was first passed by voters in 2016, and this is a renewal of that millage for 1.5 mills for 6 years. And I'll turn it over to Mark. Is there anything you'd like to add, sir?
Well, I just want to stress the importance of this millage as it relates to our operating costs. I mean, this is roughly it's a swing of about $3 million that we wouldn't have, that would have to come out of our general fund in order to cover our special education expenses. Since this enhancement was passed, since this 1.5 mills was passed, our district has been fully funded by the funds that this generates to the tune of about average about $5 million a year that that we've had in unreimbursed costs. I'm sorry, closer to $3 million that we're getting that we would otherwise have to absorb in our general fund. And what that means, we would have to eliminate some general funds program and services in order to cover these mandated expenses. So it's a very important millage for us. And we're very thankful for the support it received the first time around, and look forward to the same level of support by our community. I did share with board members a survey that was conducted by Epic MRA that showed a great deal of community support for this millage. So that's encouraging. KRESA board would like local districts to support this millage, or support this through the resolution that's provided there for your consideration, so that they can gauge the level of support that exists from county school districts. And it's here as a discussion item, and we would bring this back to the board at the January 25th meeting for approval. So I'm happy to answer questions. I know, Randy, I don't know if there's anything from the KRESA board's perspective that that needs to be shared or not.
No, other than so far, Portage has been reimbursed in full for special education costs for the last 5 years of the millage, and it looks like going forward that will continue. So it just reinforces your comments about how important it is to the district.
And I'm just to add to that comment, that all districts in Kalamazoo County now are fully reimbursed for their special ed costs as a result of this millage.
Any questions from board members?
Yeah, Randy, it just seems like, now this has just become part of the kind of baseline funding, like the enhancement millage. And, if this were to go away at this point, I don't quite have words for it. But yeah, that would set us back.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, without a whole lot of background on this, the presentation was certainly compelling. So consider mine a little bit of an outsider's opinion, and it speaks well for it.
I'd just like to say we're very thankful. We live in a very generous community, and our voters approved this many years ago, and they continue to do that, and they continue to support education. So, a big shout out to our community and our voters. So.
Any other comments from trustees on the special education millage renewal? Okay, very good. We've reached the end of our agenda, and our meeting is adjourned at exactly 7:30. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.